Alright, what's up boys? Today, I'm making a video about how to improve mid-game macro. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because I've been doing a lot of coaching recently, and a lot of the times I want to explain this concept, but I feel like it's coming up so often that I might as well just make a video about it. And then I can just show people the video and then talk about more specific people things rather than just generic how to improve things. And this is specifically about mid-game. And it's going to be very helpful for people that don't know what to do in the mid game or like don't know how to even begin to think about what to do in the mid game. And we'll sort of talk about like what you can try to think of and how you can think about the game. So jumping right into it, the general concept, general idea is just you're trying to figure out what you think should happen in a game state and then see how it's actually played out and then use that information to inform your next decision, right? And use that experience. The steps are very simple. Just figure out when you need to think of a plan, what are all the possible plans, which is the best plan, and then execution on that plan. It's very simple. Now, there are a few things I want to talk about before I go into step by step and analyze the steps deeply. The first thing is that I know that it's cliche, but like mistakes are realistically the best way to improve and the fastest way to improve, right? This strategy involves a lot about challenging yourself and being okay with making mistakes and using your mistakes as learning opportunities. It's very important that you're okay with this, and it's going to be very helpful for improvement. Another thing is that no two situations are the same, so you're never going to have like the exact same set of champions in game state, so you have to sort of use your experience. You can't just be like, okay, whenever I'm in this exact situation, I'll do it. You always have to be like trying to extrapolate data from one game and like apply it to a different game to use the best of your abilities. And the third is going to be more of a nomenclature thing. It's about exactly what do I mean by plan. And what I mean by plan essentially is when you're playing League, you always want to play with an objective in mind. And key point is the objective. When I say plan, I mean plan around an objective, right? So things that I would consider real plans are, you know, sieging turrets or trying to take a turret, dragon, baron, herald, right? These are pretty much like the only things that are like plans that you really want to be focusing around. Things that are not plans are stuff like kills, you know, waves on the side lane, right? Vision. These are all things that are good and they're important to know about, but they're not like the things you should be focusing on, right? You can get a kill and also be focusing on playing for an objective. You can get vision and then play for dragon or baron, right? But it shouldn't be my whole plan is to play for vision. It should be my plan is to play for vision and then play for an objective. So, bottom of mind, how do you know when to think about this? Well, it's mid-game macro, so generally it needs to be the mid-game. Mid-game's usually when the first tower falls or the first few towers fall. But more like, importantly, like in that time frame that it's the mid-game, when do you start thinking about this? Well, generally it's going to be when the game is really neutral and nothing's really happening. So nobody's fighting, you know, nobody's taking an objective, nobody's like contesting anything on the map. Everyone's just kind of doing their own thing and can decide to do anything else if they wanted, right? The most common situations for this are when people are basing or they're dead, right? And that's when I would suggest you do it. Whenever you base, just think about it. Think about your plan the whole time as you're leaving the map. So now that we know that, the first step essentially is, what are all the possible plans? Why do you need to think about all the possible plans, including the really bad ones? The reason that you need to do this is that, well, there's a few actually. There's three. Well, there's more than three, but the first is that League is dynamic. So the reason that plan might be bad could change very quickly, right? League is never the same, right? It's always changing. In any specific game, the game state's always going to be different very, very quickly. Somebody could die or somebody could show up on a map you didn't anticipate. So you need to be able to quickly, you know, change your mindset, right? Even as you're leaving base, you're like, okay, I don't know which plan's good. If you see something that makes another plan better, you might be like, oh, let's just do that, right? So that's one reason. Another reason is that it's actually impossible to do something you don't think about doing, surprisingly. 99% of players in NA are below Diamond 3, and you can imagine that means that a lot of them don't know how to play proper macro, right, in mid-game. And even the ones that do play proper macro, they probably don't know why fully, or they don't have like a good reason they think it's the best, or they don't even know that it's the best. And some of them probably don't even know what the best would be, like they can't even think about it, right? The reason that thinking about all the possible plans helps with this is because as you play and get better, you're going to be able to like see what other people do and be able to like integrate that into your own gameplay, right? So you're going to say, oh, I saw somebody else do this, or like we did this and it worked really well. Like I want to try that. I thought that was really good in this situation. And that's how you're going to be able to figure out like, oh, I've never even thought about doing this, but now I know how I'm going to think about doing this, right? It's a lot about thinking about how the game plays out, using that information and experience you gain, seeing how things are better or worse than what you thought, and you going from there. The third really big thing is sometimes you can do more than one plan at the same time, and that's going to be hard to think of if you're not like trying to exhaustively think about everything you could do, right? The most common situation for this is doing like a tower and a dragon, right? Let's say that dragon's coming up in like 2 minutes. You might say, oh, I can do the tower first and then do the dragon. Like the both of them are basically the same for a long time or very similar, and I can just play for both at the same time. And then I get 2 objectives instead of 1, and that's a really solid plan. So that's like the big reason you want to conceive of all possible plans before you even start analyzing. The next thing is now you need to analyze every single plan, right? And once you analyze every single plan, you need to think about which plan is the best plan. And it's important that when you come up with this reason, that it's very clear and not predictable, very clear and to the point, right? It's not vague in any way. You can clearly point to something at any point if something goes wrong and know why it went wrong and know what your interpretation of the events was wrong about to not accurately depict what would happen in that situation, right? So the reason this is really important is because, again, you need to allow yourself the potential of being wrong, right? If you don't have like a clear thing to point to, it's going to be very hard to gain anything from that. For example, let's say that you decide that going top is the best plan, but you don't really have a reason for it, right? You go top, and then you lane against them, and then you die, and then you don't really know what to do now, right? You went top, and you kind of didn't play for anything, and you just died. What do you gain from that, right? Well, you probably know how to not die next time, right? Either don't fight the guy or don't get ganked. But like, in terms of like macro, what do you learn, right? Don't go top. In why? What situations, right? It's not very clear, right? You need to really think about it a lot to even get some small tidbit out of it. Contrast that with, okay, I want to go top lane because I want to TP bot lane for dragon and I want to pull somebody to the other side of the map, right? So if you have that as your reasoning, you'll know exactly where that goes wrong, right? If you go top and you get ganked and then they go bot lane and get dragon, then it's, oh, I went too early, so they could have another person go top and I couldn't pressure, right? Or it's, oh, I went top and I couldn't lane against the guy I was playing against at all. So like, there's no point for me to be top. He just can dive me and I have to stay really far away from my tower and I can't do anything. I might as well just do something else, right? Or just be there for dragon, right? It's very clear like, oh, something went wrong. I know exactly what went wrong and I know what to change for the future and what I need to consider next time to change it for the better. So that's why it's very important to have a clear reason, and ideally you'd have a clear reason for every single plan that you have, right? If something's not good, you want to be able to know why it's not good and how to do it better for next time. The next step is just execution, right? And the only really important thing about this is making sure you follow the plan that you set out. It's very easy to get led astray by like random kills or random fights, but it's very important that you try to only do things that do not inhibit your ability to play the plan that you set out, right? If you want to go top lane and then TP down bot lane for dragon, don't go top lane and then a minute before dragon, base and TP back top lane because you can get a big CS lead, right? That wouldn't make any sense, right? Make sure you keep playing out your plan the way that you say you're going to. With obviously, don't be like super strict about it and stubborn. You know, if you're trying to do Baron and everybody on your team dies, don't just start Baron anyway. That wouldn't make sense either. Be smart about it. Um, you'll get a feel for it, but just try to make sure that you're following your plan as best as you can and not straying away from it intentionally. And that's pretty much all the things with the steps. Now, the big thing about this strategy is that it's not an exhaustive way of looking at the game, right? It's not like this is the best way, the best version of the strategy possible. There's actually a lot of ways you can improve on this strategy. And I have like 3 big ways, but there's definitely more. And if you are the ones getting coached by my stream, I might tell you more, or you might find out more, or maybe, you know, we see a different way of doing something better, and then you can change that, right? But I think 3 things that you can look forward to adding to once you're more comfortable and competent. Firstly is backup plans, and also more steps, as well as timing, right? Kind of a lot, but they're kind of very similar. Backup plans just means like, oh, being able to recognize certain key like values that are going to change your mind on what's best, right? Let's say you're thinking about whether to contest, like trying to go top or bot lane. It might be, oh, they left base first, they're going to show on the map first. So if I see my laner bot lane, I'm going to go bot lane. If I see my laner top lane, I'm going to go top lane, right? And I'm going to play for whichever tower I'm in, right? That could be considered as a backup plan, right? Or something very similar to that, but that's something you can add into your gameplay to make it more smooth and consistent. Another thing is just more steps in general. So more steps meaning like, okay, I'm going to go top lane, and then I'm going to push out this wave and then shift down and help my team get vision. And then when I go back top, then I'm going to play for this tower, right? That could be a very concise way, or like a very quick way of knowing everything that you're going to do. And then before the game, before the play even happens, you're going to be able to see where things go wrong very, very quickly and where you weren't thinking correctly, right? As well as timing. Timing is really important because, like I mentioned earlier about doing multiple plans at the same time, timing is very helpful with this. If you know how long something takes, then it's easier to be able to anticipate where and when you're going to be able to do more than one plan at the same time, right? How do you know how long it takes to take a tower? It depends on the situation, and that just comes from experience. So that's something you can add once you're more confident in yourself. Another thing that I think is really important is, at some point, you're going to be very comfortable with this kind of strategy, and there are going to be situations where you know pretty much exactly what would happen if you did it properly, but there's another option that you're not really sure about. It's kind of like an unknown variable. I think at some point you should be willing to take attempts on these unknown variables at the risk of everything going horribly wrong, right? It can be very easy to always want to play for a win every single game, but the best way to improve is really challenging yourself to make a mistake, right? And if you're looking at these situations, the best example I can think of is a situation like it's just hitting 20 minutes and your team can do Baron really quickly, but you don't have to do Baron. Like, you could just not do Baron instantly, but like it might work and it might be really good, but you're not sure, right? You're never gonna know. You're only gonna know if you try, right? If you try it and it doesn't work, then okay, you know why it didn't work, and like maybe next time if you see that one thing that made it didn't work not there, then oh, maybe it will work this time. Then you can try it again. So that's another thing that I think is really helpful at some point. And then the third and probably the most important thing that I think you should start adding is, I think that thinking about what the enemy team is doing is so important in the game. And doing these steps for the enemy is just as important as figuring out for yourself, right? The reason I don't have it automatically is because it's very difficult to do both at the very beginning. So I suggest just doing it for yourself at the beginning, but then once you're comfortable with it, definitely add what is the enemy doing to your checklist. Like, think about what are my plans, what are the opponent's plans? Why are their plans good, why are my plans good? Do it from both teams, and you're going to find that it's going to be easier to figure out which plans are good and bad, right? A good example of this is, if you have 3 dragons and your enemy team has 0 dragons, it's a lot more important for them that they take dragon from you than it is for you to take dragon from them, right? if you think about it from their perspective, they have like one play they can make, which is contest dragon. But from your perspective, you have a bunch of plays, right? And if potentially you have Herald in this situation, you could go like top lane before dragon, and then pop Herald, and now you're gonna get like 3 towers potentially. And for one dragon, that's like a really good trade potentially. That's why I think about the opponent's plan is just as important as your own plan. And this isn't to say that you can't do it at the beginning. I think just try doing it for yourself if you're not comfortable with it. A lot of it is being able to do this quickly. You want to ideally be doing this during the game. You can also do it after the game to like review. If you're doing VOD review, I suggest just focusing on this and trying to like remember what you were thinking and try your best to improve at this as much as possible. And I think you'll find that you'll get a lot better at macro very, very quickly. With that being said, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. I will be doing a follow-up video about the beginning of the game. The beginning of the game is very similar, and you kind of do the same things, but it's so involved that I think I should just make it its own video. And I think that is pretty much all for today. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Make sure to leave a comment and let me know if I could have done something better, or if I could have maybe made certain things more clear. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. But thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you guys the next time that I'm streaming.